When you go to a classical concert, in my case, they don't know and I don't tell them. They only know that when you go to André and his orchestra, you will have an evening you will never forget. André Rieu didn't just give the world beautiful music, he also built a fortune so huge that even his closest friends were shocked. Beyond his stage charisma, Rieu left behind a huge empire of historic castles, priceless violins, global tours, and a music brand that turned classical music into a business. The full extent of his legacy has finally been revealed, leaving his family speechless. But how much money did he really have, and how did one man build such an amazing fortune? Join us as we tell the amazing story of André Rieu, Waltz King's unstoppable musical journey. Musical legend André Rieu leaves behind a fortune so huge that it doesn't just shock his family, it shakes them to their core. Not because they didn't expect him to be rich, of course, but because they didn't see it coming. The real size of it is mind-boggling. We're not talking about a few $1 million in investments. We're talking about an empire built on waltzes, violins, and a dream that broke every rule in classical music. His estate includes huge properties, a global music brand, and a business model that turned the traditional music industry on its head. His family is feeling a mix of grief, pride, and shock. How did one man with a violin and a dream build something so big that it makes headlines? Before we go any further, let's go back to where it all began. André Rieu was born in 1949 in the Dutch city of Maastricht. As a child, he grew up surrounded by music. His father was a serious conductor who led orchestras with the kind of discipline that left no room for nonsense. Music in their home wasn't just a hobby or background noise, it was structured and taken very seriously. That was André's world as a child. But even back then, something about people who knew him said that Rieu wasn't just good at music, he was exceptional. He won the top prize. His father was focused on perfection and control, but André was drawn to the joy and emotion behind the notes. This difference in perspective with his father would later shape Rieu's career. He started playing the violin early and followed the expected path of formal training, hours of practice, and a spot at the Royal Conservatory of Brussels. Even though he was good at what he did, there was something missing. The classical music he was taught felt stiff, concerts were formal, audiences sat still, and emotions were kept under the surface. That wasn't how André thought music should be. He thought people should laugh, cry, dance, and feel everything, but most importantly, they should feel welcome. In 1987, he stopped waiting for the music world to change and started changing it himself. He started the Johann Strauss Orchestra. At first, André and his 12 musicians weren't very big. They played in small venues and traveled in a broken-down bus. But André had a dream. He wanted to bring Strauss waltzes, happy melodies, and strong emotions to everyone, not just concert-goers. He wanted to bring classical music down from its high horse and back to the people. That's when things started to get better for him and his band. As they played, people noticed something was off, but André didn't react. Like any other conductor, he smiled, moved to the music, and cracked jokes. But that wasn't all. His orchestra did the same. They laughed on stage, looked at the crowd, and treated every concert like a party. The crowd responded by clapping, swaying, and even dancing. Classical music felt alive again. It wasn't something to be studied and analyzed. It was something to enjoy. One of the turning points was when they played Shostakovich's Second Waltz. It had everything André loved: drama, beauty, and rhythm. The real magic wasn't in any one song. It was in how André made the music feel personal. He didn't just play for people, he played with them. He turned every performance into a shared moment. Word got out, tickets sold faster. The orchestra grew from 12 musicians to a full symphonic group. Every year the concerts got bigger, going from small local venues to huge arenas and outdoor festivals. But André never changed how he played. Whether he was playing for overtime, André became more than just a musician. He became a symbol of happiness. His shows weren't just concerts. They were events where people came to feel something real, whether it was a waltz that made them remember their childhood, or a melody that made them cry without knowing why. His music spoke to people in ways that went beyond language or culture. Throughout it all, the violin stayed at the center. It was the tool he used to connect tradition and change. But André, he never relied on the past to guide him. He changed what a classical concert could be, and started a movement. He didn't just play music, he invited everyone to fall in love with it all over again. As André and his orchestra continued to tour and grow, their influence went beyond music halls. Something much bigger was happening, and that's where the real story of his fame starts. Stay tuned for the big surprises that are coming up. The Waltz King's rise to unmatched fame. Rieu's journey didn't end with thrilling crowds with classical waltzes. He also built a business empire that was unlike anything else in the world of classical music. What started as small concerts with only a dozen musicians slowly grew into a global brand based on joy, showmanship, and smart business sense. Remember that Rieu tried out his style with the Maastricht Salon Orchestra in 1978, long before the big tours and fame. It was a small group that played light classical music, but it was the start of his style. That early project gave him the confidence and experience to later build something much bigger. In 1987, Rieu made it official. He started the Johann Strauss Orchestra, and by 1988, they were putting on their first concerts. The group was small with only 12 musicians, but they didn't wait for invitations. They booked their own venues, planned their own travel, and built everything from scratch. Their simple goal was to bring classical music, especially the waltzes, back into the public eye. Over the years, the Johann Strauss Orchestra grew beyond their wildest dreams, both in popularity and size. From 12 musicians, the group grew to over 60, and even more were called in when needed. It became one of the largest private orchestras in the world. It wasn't just about adding more instruments. It was also about making a fuller, richer sound that matched the grand feel of their performances. They did this by building bigger stages, venues, and more complicated sets. Then in 1995, the real big break came during halftime at a big football game. Rieu and his orchestra played the second waltz. In just a few minutes, millions of people across Europe saw something they didn't expect from classical music: fun, passion, and drama. That one performance changed everything. What happened next will blow your mind. Suddenly, Rieu wasn't just a name in the music world, he became a star. Everybody knew his name, and stores couldn't keep his CDs in stock. A lot of people who had never bought a classical album before started looking for his music. His concerts were shown over and over on TV, and each time they did, they brought in new fans. People saw the joy in the performances, the smiles on stage, the beautiful staging, and the music that felt alive. Unlike many classical performers, Rieu wasn't afraid of the camera. He used it, looked into it, smiled, and drew people in. Over time, the media gave him a new name, the modern king of waltz. The name stuck. It was catchy and showed how he had changed the genre and made it feel new again. With fame came money, and Rieu wasn't afraid to run things like a business. His albums climbed the Billboard charts, often topping classical and even general music lists. He sold out arenas in Europe, Asia, Australia, and the Americas. For years he was one of the highest paid touring acts in the world, right up there with major pop and rock stars. His concerts weren't just musical events, they were blockbuster productions. Rieu set up a business model that gave him full control. Unlike most orchestras which depend on government grants or sponsorships, he self-funded his operation and hired over 100 full-time staff, including musicians, sound technicians, stage crew designers, event managers, and more. Since everyone was paid a salary, there was loyalty, consistency, and a close-knit team that moved from city to city like a single unit. Rieu's empire didn't stop at live concerts. He also built a studio and production company under his own name. He recorded albums, filmed DVDs, edited videos, and promoted his music all in-house. This lets him keep the quality high and the message consistent. Along with the music, he sold merchandise like mugs, scarves, posters, and even custom costumes. He didn't just sell music, he sold an experience, and fans were all for it. His events got bigger and better, and fans came from all over the world to see his annual concerts in Maastricht, his hometown. Hotels were booked months in advance. It wasn't just a concert anymore, it was a festival, a pilgrimage for his fans. Of course, not everyone liked what Rieu was doing. Classical music purists called it kit, and they said he watered down the music and made it too flashy and easy. But fans didn't care. They weren't looking for a textbook recital. They were looking for beauty, emotion, and connection, and Rieu gave them all of that and more. He combined costume, lighting, sound staging, and music into what the Germans call Gaskunst, which means a whole work of art. That idea might sound hard to understand, but for Rieu it was natural. He wanted every part of the experience to work together, from the sparkly ball gowns to the fireworks at the end of the show. He didn't try to win over the critics. He didn't need to. He had the crowd and the numbers on his side. As his empire grew, it became clear that what he had created wasn't just a music career, it was a whole new type of entertainment. He had taken something old that had felt distant and stiff, and turned it into something new. Rieu's focus changed once the foundations of his empire were set. It wasn't just about growth anymore. It was about leaving a mark on culture and inspiring a new generation to fall in love with the magic of live music. The next part of this story would be just as ambitious and even more surprising: André Rieu's castle musical success and childhood dreams. Besides making great music, André Rieu also made a lot of money, and the castle he built is the best way to show that. The castle is a grand 16th century estate in the middle of Maastricht, but it's more than just a fancy piece of property. It's a perfect representation of who Rieu is and what he built from the ground up. He found the castle by accident, while on a holiday walk through a quiet part of Mr. What other people saw as a romantic old ruin caught his attention, but it was the feeling that made him want to know more. It made him think of his childhood, and then it hit him. As a child he had taken piano lessons in that building. The connection between the past and present was instant and emotional. It was like his past and present were shaking hands. The castle also reminded him of a childhood interest that had never really gone away. He had always loved Tintin comic books. As a child he got lost in those pages, especially the ones with big castles with secret staircases, hidden gardens, and magical stories. Owning a castle wasn't just a sign of success. It had been a dream he had had since he was a kid with a violin. When the chance came up in 1999, Rieu didn't think twice. He bought the castle for $1.45 million, which was about $1.9 million at the time. The property is split into 3 separate parts that are owned by different people. Rieu slowly negotiated and bought each section until the estate was whole again. He wasn't looking for an investment property. He was building a home that would reflect both his personal and professional identity. Once the deal was done, the work began. According to people close to him, the castle wasn't in good shape when he moved in. Rieu didn't just hand it over to designers or let a team make decisions. He was personally involved in every step of the process. That's not all. He also oversaw the restoration, making sure that the work respected the building's history while still having his own style. Original features were kept, like the kitchen, which dates back to 1452. Other parts were built in 1526, and the stories written in the walls were carefully preserved. These stories aren't just local legends. One says that D'Artagnan, whether it's true or not, the castle has long been a part of Maastricht's complicated past, and Rieu knew how important it was to keep that history alive. But he didn't stop there. Rieu added his own style, with gold leaf accents, tall green houses, lush gardens, and even exotic birds. He wanted the space to reflect his taste and energy. The castle became more than just a home. It was a stage of its own, carefully styled with personality, elegance, and a hint of. As with his concerts, the castle was both serious and fun. Traditional yet open to new ideas. Over the years the castle became part of Rieu's brand. Fans knew it from interviews and behind-the-scenes videos. It started showing up in promotional content that brought attention to both his music and the life he had built around it. It was a place where art and life came together for many fans. Seeing Rieu at the castle wasn't just exciting. It made the music feel more personal. Rieu's ties to Maastricht went beyond where he was born. He put a lot of money into the city, and over time bought 34 different properties,
including homes, buildings, and the castle itself. These weren't just for profit. Some were used to house his staff, store instruments or equipment, or do music-related work like sound editing and practice. Maastricht wasn't just a place on the map anymore. It had become the headquarters of a global music operation. André Rieu didn't just build a business, he built a world. The old stone walls and thoughtful design of the castle make it the center of that world. It tells the story of someone who never forgot where he came from, and who chased big dreams while staying grounded. The boy who used to climb those stairs to practice piano now owned the building, and made it a place where his past and present could live together. The castle is a quiet answer to anyone who ever doubted Rieu's path. For him, success didn't mean giving up classical music or changing who he was. It meant taking those things and making them into something bigger and more lasting. As the music played and the tours went on, the castle stayed strong, beautiful and full of stories. But Rieu's vision wasn't just about bricks, gold or waltzes. It was about legacy, both the one he was building for himself and the one he wanted to leave behind. Watch this video to learn about another instrument that has come to define his legacy. Rieu's wealth doesn't just come from concert tours and his huge castle. A big part of it lies in his violins. These instruments are more than just tools for making music. They're the emotional and financial center of his empire. Each one has its own history, beauty, and personal connection that goes beyond strings and wood. His most prized possession is a Stradivarius violin from 1667. This violin wasn't just made by Antonio Stradivari. It was made during one of the most important events in the violin maker's life, was when he got engaged to his future wife. That detail doesn't escape Rieu. He doesn't just see it as an instrument. To him, it represents love and commitment. Just like the music he plays, owning a Stradivarius isn't like walking into a store and picking one off the shelf. These violins are almost impossible to find. The process of finding one is long and unpredictable. It takes more than just money to get a Stradivarius. It takes timing, reputation, and a deep understanding of what these instruments represent. When Rieu finally got one, he didn't treat it like a trophy. He treated it like family. Each of his violins has a name, a place in his routine, and a voice that he understands. He knows how each one responds, how it sounds in a hall, and how it feels in his hands. For him, these violins aren't just valuable, they're alive. Because he plays them so much, and they're a part of every show, recording, and stage moment that defines his career, there's no denying their value in terms of money. Rare violins like his have quietly become some of the best long-term investments in the world. Unlike stocks, their value doesn't go up and down every week. It grows slowly and steadily over decades. Some of them have doubled or tripled in value just in Rieu's lifetime. Wealth managers and collectors say these violins are portable wealth that is small enough to Rieu can't figure out how much these violins are really worth because they are such an important part of his identity. He treats them like a beloved pet or a family heirloom and makes sure they are stored perfectly when they're not in use. The temperature is controlled and the humidity is checked all the time. Each one is insured for millions of dollars, not just because of how old it is, but also because of what it means to Rieu and the people who listen to him. His fans know these violins as soon as they hear them. They're a part of his style. His look and his concerts are meant to make you feel warm, rich, and unforgettable. The sound of a centuries-old violin full of depth and tone completes that picture. He could use modern instruments, but they wouldn't feel the same. These rare violins don't just sound better, they carry the soul of his music. Their story is similar to Rieu's. He took something that used to belong only to the elite and made it feel close, familiar, and human. In the same way that Rieu's shows are both classy and open to everyone, so are his violins. They hold on to tradition while also letting everyone in. In the end, Rieu's violin collection tells us as much about his mind as it does about his heart. It shows how much he values legacy, emotion, and sound. It shows how he balances passion with smart decisions, and just like the castle, tours, and orchestra, these instruments are played in open-air arenas by thousands of people from all walks of life. One note, one string, one moment at a time. Thanks for watching. If you're a fan of Andre Rieu, tell us what you love most about him in the comments. Also, click on the video below to watch it.